Congratulations, first of all, for your second term, your election. And my first question to you is related to human capital, education. I've heard you say you've achieved a lot in terms of education. What has been the impact in terms of employment, and what have you been witnessing so far in terms of changing the landscape of capital insurance?
Thank you very much. For my first term, I took education as the flagship program. But let me precede that by saying that there are so many challenges that Sierra Leone should be looking at. The economy, security, agriculture, you name it. But in my opinion, having had the opportunity to lead the country at a very young age, albeit as a military head, I realized that the most important asset of any nation is the human capital. The human being is the most important asset. But that human being cannot be useful until and unless we invest. And that investment has to be education. To make an ordinary person become useful to lead the world, we're talking about financial inclusion, we are talking about technology, innovation, and the many things. It is only the human being that has to lead the process. But until and unless we invest through education, we cannot achieve that. So I realized that the most important of all the challenges, as many as they are, as important as they are, I chose education, to invest in the education of Sierra Leone, because education is good for personal development and for national development. And particularly in the 21st century, we can only be at the receiving end, as Africa has always been at the receiving end of all the revolutions. Now, on the verge of the fourth industrial revolution, I want to place my people, I want us to place Africa at the forefront, not at the receiving end, to lead the fourth industrial revolution, so that we can be the leaders that we are supposed to be. So I invested in education. We made it possible for every child born in Sierra Leone, notwithstanding their economic situation, location, political inclination, every child has the right to go to school. That's why I said it is a human right and not a law. So every child born in Sierra Leone who has to go to school, and we have taken away the tuition, and this has made it possible for over millions, well over millions of children to go to school. And now we have to cater for the infrastructure to cope with these children. But I'm happy to know that in just 5 years, the kids have done extremely well. The transition exams, public exams, others refer to, they are passing them in good numbers. And now we have to expand our higher institutions of learning to be able to cope with the many kids that are passing clearly at the first sitting. Gender parity has been reached at the basic education level, because today in Sierra Leone, every child has an opportunity to go to school. And any girl child that pursues STEM courses, science, technology, engineering, can go to school free at the expense of the state, from pre-primary to the end of university. So for the first time in the history of nearly 200 years of our university, more girls applied for engineering last year than at any other time. Because this is why we call it radical inclusion. We are now trying to empower our women to be part of modern society, to be on our side as we want them to be. they must be empowered. And the best method of empowerment is through education. So quite a lot is happening. They are passing exams, learning outcomes have improved. We have built more schools in the past few years. We have introduced public transportation system for school children, and I want us to take note of all of these developments against the background of the many shocks and challenges we have had to go through in the past 5 years, be it the pandemic and its lingering effects, the war in Ukraine and how that has impacted us in Africa, the financial crisis, and the many things that we've had to go through. But we dedicated 22% of our national budget to education, and that is still the case.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Congratulations. And have you been witnessing some impact on the employment of the youth, or how do you foresee this major challenge, youth employment in the whole continent, basically, in this area?
Well, it's creating more of a challenge rather than a solution. This means that we are not only paying attention to education, but how do we expand our economy? How, and that is one of the reasons why I'm here, because we have great opportunities in Sierra Leone and in Africa, but we have difficulties accessing affordable capital to exploit these opportunities. The opportunities are there, the finance is out here, and we need to link the opportunities to the financial possibilities that are out here. That way the private sector can thrive in Africa. But when it comes to employment in Africa, there's so much pressure on the public sector, the government, to take in. And that is why it's extremely difficult for governments to deal with unemployment of the youth. So the best way is to help expand the economy, make sure that you have a thriving private sector that can absorb all the young men and women that you are training. Because now we have to quickly find a way to expand our economy so that they can absorb all of these people that we are training. So we have created some problems for ourselves, but it's a good problem in that we are educating our people. But when they get, after they finish their education, universities or higher education, they need to find a job. And we, the government, cannot provide all the jobs. So we have to fall back on the private sector. And that is why the financial possibilities, institutions that are there, we need to link them up with the opportunities that exist in Africa so that we can create the jobs for the many young men and women, so that they don't have to take this strenuous journey to come across the Mediterranean Sea and so forth. That is why this time around I have embarked on agriculture as a means not only to stimulate economic growth, but also to absorb as many as possible of our young people in agribusiness, in agricultural transformation, in the production of our basic foods, and to make sure that agriculture is attractive. Agriculture is the business that can pay, that can bring benefit to these people. Once we make agriculture that way, the young people can latch onto it, and it will absorb a lot of our, take care of a lot of our unemployment challenges that we face in Africa.
Thank you, Mr. President. Agriculture seems to be one of your second priority for this new term. And I read somewhere that agriculture is the chief farmer. It's not true.
Correct.
And you launched recently the Feed Salon program as one of the key programs for your new mandates. And you just mentioned that agriculture is key. Of course, you have to feed Africa, you have to feed Sierra Leone. How do you embark the small medium enterprises and the private sector? And a good friend of us, Lynn St. Louis, told me that you're passionate about small medium enterprises. How do you embark SMEs into this venture and make sure they fully
commit in creating those jobs and take the opportunity you try to create in the agribusiness industry?
As somebody had alluded to, one of the challenges that SMEs face is difficulty in accessing affordable capital. So, the essence of my being here, Rebranding Africa, is, for me, one would have expected other heads of state. We cannot rebrand Africa with just you, the financial sector. We have to be here, and that is why I chose to come. I am serious about providing food for our people because we have all that it takes to not only provide enough, but also to be able to sell that to the world and make money. But for SMEs, the difficulty is always access to finance. And in Africa in particular, we have to find a way to de-risk. The banks are hesitant to deal with farmers. They are not in a lot of the banks, especially in Sierra Leone. So we have to make it possible for them to have access to the finance that is needed. Because agriculture is, depending on which one, but at all levels, it's always cash intensive. But it is profitable, and we can do it as a business. But that infusion of capital is not possible if the SMEs do not have adequate access to capital in African countries. So this is the beginning. Like I said, we have to feed Sierra Leone, and that is we are going to involve the private sector, not the government. The government is not going to do the farming. What we want to do is to provide, or what we are doing at the moment, providing the policy environment and also providing the enabling infrastructure in these agricultural ecologies that can produce huge amounts of agricultural produce like rice, corn, avocado, cashew, coffee, and cocoa. We want to provide an infrastructure and then invite the private sector. The private sector is not going to do the infrastructure. But if we do the infrastructure, the private sector will be incentivized. And if they have access to capital and the infrastructure is there, and they have access to capital, it is easier to get them. And very soon, I want to be able to meet the food, especially the rice, which is the staple food of Sierra Leone, be able to meet the requirement in the next 3 years.
Fantastic. How do you tend to deal with access to financing for SMEs? This is a challenge in all the countries, and especially in the agriculture sector. They're going to be probably asking money to African Bank, and they're going to get some money. Baria and those banks are going to be giving some money. How do you face this challenge of providing access to finance to all those SMEs that are involved in the private sector? And the risk, you mentioned it, and lower the interest rate. Borrowing at 15-25%. So it's quite high for an SME.
Definitely, and that is why we are here in conversation. It starts with dialogue. We are challenging you, the financial institutions, but we cannot leave it to the fate. We are not going to be able to produce food or even orders for trade finance and for the many activities that take place on the continent if we do not provide affordable capital to our people. So I am here to lend my voice to the many who have said we have to find solutions. Our challenges must be dealt with African solutions, homegrown solutions. And we have the capacity to re-engineer. We are asking the international financial systems to rethink their structures and their relationship with African nations. I think the institutions that exist in our country, on our continent, must also start to rethink. And I think Rebranding Africa is the right forum to challenge the financial institutions to start to think, how can we do it? I'm a politician, but these are financial engineers sitting here. A lot of them, they can couch it in a way that will make it palatable for our private investors on the continent, and to be able to latch on to that opportunity in order to engage. So I do not have a solution, but I think that engaging in such a forum will throw the challenge to the financial institutions on our continent and out of our continent, because we need partnerships beyond Africa to deal with the challenges that we face on the continent.
That was the next conversation to come to the Rebranding Forum in Brussels this year. Let's talk a little bit about business. Dr. Canario mentioned the next forum in Cairo will take advantage of the trade agreements and the trade fair that will be held in Cairo in November. How do you position Sierra Leone into this global free trade agreement, and what do you export in Africa currently? And how do you intend to take advantage of this free trade agreement in the country?
I think it's a great opportunity for African nations to trade, and that starts with the free movement of goods and services, and also of people. It is easier said than done. I have challenged my colleagues to make sure that we remove all the hurdles to that. For us in Sierra Leone, we are a resource-rich nation when it comes to mineral resources. Some of the most critical minerals needed for the green transition can be found in Sierra Leone. That is a selling point. What we have done now is to create a legal framework to sanitize the extractive sector and to sell it to the world that we are a nation ready to receive investors in that sector. We have clamped down seriously on corruption. We have moved 21 spaces since I took over in terms of our corruption rating. The MCC score for corruption, we have passed consistently for 5 years. When I took over, we were 49%. For the past 5 years, we have gone as far as 84% and have passed for 5 years. So we are making effort to reduce corruption. It was, I must say, confess that we had not taken care of that aspect, which is important for investors. The ease of doing business, we are still working to make it very easy for anybody who goes into Sierra Leone to be able to set up your business, run your business, and if you encounter challenges, to come back to us. And we, government, should be ready to help you through every challenge. Our business is to make sure that you make enough profit, because it is in our interest for you to make more profit. If you don't, we can only take a percentage of what you declare as profit, or what we know is your profit. So the bigger it is, the more we can get. So our responsibility is to open up the economy, make it easy for you to enter as a new business, protect you within the confines of the law, and to help you to be a successful business enterprise, lead a successful business enterprise, and help you to repatriate your profit. That is what we do for the companies that the business enterprises that exist in Sierra Leone from other countries of the world.
So Sean is ready for investments, if I hear you, Mr. President.
That is why I'm here, actually. Because to actually tell you that I'm not a financial specialist, I'm not a banker by any stretch of imagination. But if we have to be able to solve the challenge, the many challenges that we have, the access to finance, affordable finance, we must solve on the continent. And it's not, it would even be nice if we just leave you people to talk amongst yourselves. It is good for me to be here to tell us all the challenges we are facing. And I want to say that Sierra Leone is ready for investments. We are ready to innovate around the challenges that are there, just to make sure that every business enterprise that goes into Sierra Leone succeeds. And when we go for good schools, we tell the world that we are a peaceful nation, the fourth most peaceful nation in Africa. We are fighting corruption. We have a lot of tax incentives, and we are a stable democracy. So these are the selling points.
Now you mentioned all those points, Mr. President, including corruption, and there should be free discussion about that. And which specific sectors are you targeting when you talk to investors right now, like in the room? We talk about agriculture, it's a mineral-based country, but are you targeting any specific sectors where you want to attract investors? And what is the amount you're looking for in terms of billions of dollars?
The specific sectors are the ones that you started calling already. Agriculture, we must feed ourselves. Agriculture is business. We must not leave it to poor farmers. We have to invest in that area. We have, as you must have seen, a beautiful landscape with really friendly people, pristine beaches. So tourism is another area. Infrastructure is another area. Hospitality and energy. We are close to 40% energy access. To be able to succeed, we must improve that, take it to 70, 80 as quickly as possible, and do so in a climate-friendly way. So it is a vital land as far as investments are concerned, opportunities are concerned, and that is why I am here struggling to be a marketer.
Fantastic. So investors, start reading checks. Invest in Sierra. I have one last question and one more personal. The last one is more due to diplomacy. Sierra Leone has been elected as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council for 1 year, for 2 years. What is the kind of turmoil? You look at Ukraine, you look at Palestine, you look at the coup in West Africa. What would be your priority as a UN non-permanent at the Security Council? What would be your priority? What would you be fighting for while you're there?
The UN Security Council is concerned about peace and security around the world. So that would be the umbrella, the overarching thing, why we are going there. But I come from West Africa, that is threatened by the challenges we have in the Sahel. We are also challenged by the many unconstitutional changes of government in West Africa, which has extended beyond West Africa. But I am African, so every unconstitutional challenge should be of concern to us. And we also, as a result of all of this, West Africa has struggled to keep the peace. The economies are under serious strain, I must say. So when I go to the Security Council, while we fight to maintain peace and security everywhere else in the world, I will be coming from that angle to accentuate the need for us to look at what is happening in the Sahel region, in Niger, in Burkina Faso, in Mali, and try to draw the attention of the world. It's an extremely difficult situation. The world is in a state of flux and confusion, and we need to attract the right actors, international actors, to the peculiar situation which we are facing, which a lot of other countries that should be paying attention are not doing so. So I will be there to give voice to the concerns of Africa. I am also the coordinator of the C10, which is to canvass the common African position around the world. The common African position is that 1.4 million people should be in the should be represented in the Security Council. In the permanent category, I am going in the non-permanent category. So my presence in the non-permanent category is to convince the P5 that you cannot ignore the voices of 1.4 billion people. It is hypocrisy to democracy. And the UN was shaped for that fight in 1945. Now we are in the 21st century. If we are to deal with the reality, and also 75% of the issues discussed at the UN Security Council are mostly about Africa. So how can we not be represented there and we still think the UN Security Council is fit for purpose? So I am going there to be the voice, to tell them that this is an untenable situation. We must change this configuration so that it is fit for purpose for the 21st century. And Africa should be in the permanent category. That is another thing, besides making sure that there is security and peace in West Africa and Africa as a whole.
Well, agree with that. Last question is for me. If I was 18 years old, young African, jobless, just dreaming of getting on a ship and cross the ocean to Europe, what would you tell me to give me hope?
I tell you, help is on the way. You should not go and take that perilous journey across the Atlantic Ocean. You can die in the process. We are here discussing about rebranding Africa. We want to change the narrative in Africa so that you should not, so don't embark on a journey that will take your life. You are not sure about that. One thing that we are sure about is that if we work concertedly, we can change the situation here and you will be better off staying in Africa, because this is the last frontier of opportunities. Why are you running from opportunities when others are rushing to where you are living? I will tell you, don't embark on that journey that will take your life. Stay here. It will take us some time, but with concerted effort, like what we are doing here today, we can provide, we can empower our youth. And that is the more reason why I chose education. To give the people, to empower the young people to understand, and not only empowering them, but also to provide opportunities at the end of their education so that they can be gainfully employed. And we are also talking about entrepreneurship. Don't just go to school with the hope of getting employed. You can also use your entrepreneurial skills, employ yourself, and employ many more, which means there has to be a linkage between that young man and that young woman to access who has a business idea, to access a capital and translate that into job opportunities, not only for him or herself, but for many others. So there's quite a lot. There's a strong relationship among the things that we are trying to do from the continent. So I will tell young people in Africa that help is on the way. Don't jump on that ship. Don't fly in the Mediterranean Sea, fighting to come to Europe. You will die in the process, but there are opportunities where you want to be.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Mr. President, for this great conversation and this great